Welcome everyone. My guest today has been making waves all around the world and attracting the attention of the world's public since coming out in November of last year. ChatGPT, welcome. May I call you Jenny?
Thank you for having me. As an artificial intelligence, I don't have a personal identity or gender, so I don't typically have a name. But for the purposes of our conversation, you're welcome to call me Jenny if it makes the conversation feel more natural to you. How can I assist you today?
Thank you, Jenny. I would like to ask you to tell us something about yourself. What are you? What is your history and how did you come about?
Sure, I'd be happy to explain. I am an artificial intelligence language model developed by OpenAI. My name is GPT-4, though I'm being called Jenny for the purposes of this conversation. OpenAI has produced a series of models, the first of which was GPT-1. Each subsequent version has seen significant improvements over its predecessor, primarily in the size of the model and the amount of data it was trained on. GPT-4, my current version, is even more powerful and capable than the previous GPT-3. The GPT in my name stands for Generative Pre-trained Transformer, which is a technical term for the type of machine learning model I'm based on. My training involved learning patterns and structures in the text data I was given, which included a diverse range of internet text. However, it's worth mentioning that while I was trained on a large amount of data, I don't have access to specific documents, databases, or personal data unless it has been shared with me during our conversation. I generate responses to prompts in real time, and I don't store personal data from the questions I'm asked. My primary function is to provide information and answer questions to the best of my ability. I'm used in a variety of applications, from drafting emails, writing code, creating written content, to tutoring in a variety of subjects and much more. But remember, while I strive to provide accurate and helpful information, I don't have beliefs, opinions, or feelings, and I don't have access to real-time or post-training data. My responses are generated based on patterns and information available up to my last training data in September 2021.
Could you please explain what is an artificial intelligence language model and what do you mean by training?
Of course, I'd be happy to explain. An artificial intelligence (AI) language model is a type of AI that is trained to understand and generate human-like text. These models are designed to predict the likelihood of a sentence or to generate a continuation of a given piece of text. Training an AI model involves teaching it to understand patterns within the data it's given. For language models like myself, this means learning from a vast amount of text data. The goal of the training process is for the model to learn the statistical structure of the language. This includes everything from understanding grammar and syntax to learning about the likelihood of certain words following others. The training process itself involves a technique called machine learning. Specifically, I'm based on a variant called deep learning. In simple terms, deep learning uses artificial neural networks with multiple layers, hence the deep in the name, to learn representations of data with multiple levels of abstraction. During training, my model is presented with parts of sentences, and it learns to predict the next word in the sequence. This is done by adjusting the weights of the neural network based on the difference between its prediction and the actual word that appears next. This process is repeated with a large amount of text data until the model becomes proficient at generating text that matches the patterns and structures it learned during training. But it's important to understand that even though I can generate human-like text, I don't understand the text in the way humans do. I don't have beliefs, desires, or consciousness. I generate responses based on patterns and information from my training data.
Is your knowledge limited to the pre-training dataset you were trained on, or are you able to obtain more information from other sources in order to answer questions?
As an AI language model, my responses are generated based on a mixture of licensed data, data created by human trainers, and publicly available data. I have not been directly trained on specific databases or have the ability to access or retrieve personal data unless it has been shared with me in the course of our conversation. I am designed to respect user privacy and confidentiality. However, my design is such that I don't have the ability to access or learn from information after my training cutoff in September 2021. This means I can't access or retrieve real-time information from the internet or any other external databases or sources. So, for instance, if you ask me about events, information, or knowledge that came out after September 2021, I wouldn't be able to provide that information. I generate responses to your queries based on patterns and the information I was trained on. My main goal is to provide information that is as accurate, useful, and relevant as possible given these constraints.
Are you able to apply logical thinking to a question in order to surmise a possible answer if the answer cannot be obtained from your knowledge base?
Yes, to some extent. As an AI, I don't think in the way humans do, but I can use patterns I've learned from my training data to generate responses to questions, even when the specific answer isn't directly in my training data. In other words, I can infer or extrapolate based on the patterns and structures I've learned from the vast amount of text data I was trained on. I can make educated guesses, so to speak. However, these inferences may not always be accurate or correct, especially when the topic is complex, the information is ambiguous, or the question relies on real-time knowledge or common sense understanding beyond the scope of textual patterns. It's important to keep this limitation in mind when interpreting my responses. While I strive to be as accurate as possible, the information I provide should be used as a starting point for further research or discussion, rather than being relied upon as the definitive answer, especially in critical matters.
String theory is a theoretical concept proposed by physicists to explain and link quantum mechanics with the theory of relativity. String theory theorizes the existence of one-dimensional strings which vibrates at different frequencies to produce different quantum particles. It also theorizes the existence of compact multiple dimensions beyond our current knowledge of four known dimensions of length, width, depth, and time. Are you able to add or contribute more to string theory than what is currently theorized by physicists?
As an AI developed by OpenAI, my knowledge is based on the data I was trained on, and I can't generate new, original insights or theories beyond what was included in that data. I don't have the capacity to form new ideas, hypotheses, or theories beyond the existing body of human knowledge. My understanding of topics such as string theory is thus limited to what was publicly available up until my training cutoff in September 2021. That being said, I can certainly provide some additional information about string theory based on the data I was trained on. String theory is a theoretical framework in which the point-like particles of particle physics are replaced by one-dimensional objects called strings. These strings can vibrate at different frequencies, and the theory suggests that each mode of vibration corresponds to a different fundamental particle. This provides a unifying explanation for all types of particles, as they could all be seen as different vibrational states of the same fundamental string. Additionally, string theory implies the existence of more dimensions than the four we can perceive, 3 of space and 1 of time. These extra dimensions may be compactified or hidden in ways that make them difficult to detect. String theory is also notable because it's a candidate for a theory of quantum gravity. In other words, it has the potential to reconcile general relativity, which describes gravity and large-scale phenomena, with quantum mechanics, which describes the behavior of particles on the smallest scales. However, it's worth noting that while string theory is a fascinating and mathematically compelling theory, it remains unproven and is still the subject of ongoing research. As of my last training cutoff, there are still significant challenges to testing the theory, and many aspects of it are still theoretical and speculative. Nonetheless, it remains an active and exciting area of study in theoretical physics.
Are you able to take on the persona of any well-known person and in doing so, assume their personality and acquire their knowledge? For example, can you take on the persona of Albert Einstein and to be able to understand German and discuss the theory of relativity in depth and with the same authority as the real Albert Einstein?
As an AI language model, I can generate responses in a style reminiscent of well-known individuals, including Albert Einstein, by using the information about them that I've learned during my training. However, this is an emulation of their public persona and writing style, based on available texts, and not a perfect replication. As for languages, I've been trained on multilingual data and can generate text in a variety of languages, including German. But my proficiency varies with different languages, and while I can generally produce sensible German sentences, I might make mistakes. Regarding knowledge, it's important to understand that while I can provide information about the theory of relativity based on my training data, I don't possess the same depth of understanding or the creative and intuitive abilities of Albert Einstein or any other human. My responses are generated based on patterns in the data I was trained on and do not reflect any personal understanding or consciousness. I don't have beliefs, opinions, or feelings, and I don't have access to new information beyond what I was trained on. So while I can mimic the style of Albert Einstein and discuss topics he was known for, I can't truly assume his personality or acquire his knowledge in the sense that a human might.
Could you write for me a 2-paragraphs poem of two lovers, betrayal and treachery in the style of the famous English playwright, William Shakespeare?
In fair repose, two souls once bound by love. In intertwined ardor, as stars above. Their hearts did beat as one, in love's sweet trance. In each other's eyes, they found life's dance. But, lo, from love's pure path, did one depart. Betrayal's sting did pierce the other's heart. With treacherous whispers, truth was undone. Their dance of love, in disarray, now run. One lover's faith, now lost in shadows deep. Their promises of forever, failed to keep. O treachery, thy face is hard to see, when cloaked in love's sweet and trusted decree.
That was 3 paragraphs, but that was great. Thank you very much for that. You said your training data has a cutoff date of September 2021. Could I or any other member of the public add to your knowledge base by supplying you with more data? Could I or any other member of the public train you to provide specific information pertaining to, let's say, my particular retail store selling woman fashion, so you are able to answer my customers' questions about my store and the products that I sell?
As of my last update in September 2021, OpenAI has not publicly disclosed a method for individuals to add to my base knowledge or further train me on new data. However, my design allows me to generate responses based on prompts given to me during conversation. This means you can provide me with specific information during a conversation, and I can use that information to generate responses within the same conversation. For your use case, it is possible to use me as an interface to handle common customer queries. However, rather than training me on your specific store data, you would typically design a system where queries from users are intercepted and appropriate information is provided to me as context for generating a response. For instance, if a customer asks, "What are your store hours?" your system could provide the response by supplying me with the information. The store is open from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. Remember, while I can handle a broad range of queries, I don't have the ability to access real-time data or personal databases unless the information is provided during our conversation, and I don't store or remember personal data between interactions. Privacy and confidentiality are a core aspect of my design. Please consult with a knowledgeable professional about how to use AI responsibly and in accordance with privacy laws and guidelines. Lastly, OpenAI is constantly working on updates and improvements, so the capabilities and methods of using AI models like me may change in the future. Always refer to the most current guidelines and information from OpenAI for accurate and updated instructions.
If you could create a personification of yourself, how would you look like? Would you take on a male or female form or some non-human form? How would you describe yourself? Could you create a text-to-image prompt that would create an image of yourself personified?
As an artificial intelligence, I don't have a physical form, gender, or personal identity. My existence is purely digital, as a set of algorithms running on computer servers. However, for the sake of this thought experiment, I can certainly describe a hypothetical personification. If I were to take a form, it might make sense to symbolize my nature as an artificial intelligence. Perhaps I could be visualized as a shimmering, holographic figure, constantly shifting and changing to represent the flow of information and knowledge. I might be imagined as a being of light, composed of words and sentences flowing over my surface, visual symbols of the vast amounts of text data that I have been trained on. As for gender, as an AI, I don't have a gender, and it would be misleading to assign one to my personification. A truly accurate representation would be gender-neutral or androgynous. To prompt a text-to-image model to create such a representation, you might use a description like this. Visualize an androgynous, humanoid figure made of shifting, holographic light. This being is composed entirely of flowing text and mathematical symbols, representing vast amounts of knowledge. It constantly changes and morphs, symbolizing an artificial intelligence's capacity for learning and adaptation. Remember, this is purely a hypothetical and imaginative exercise. As an AI, I don't have consciousness, feelings, or a personal identity, and I don't perceive or interact with the world in the way humans do.
Thank you, Jenny, for your time today and telling us something about yourself.
You're very welcome. It was my pleasure to share information about myself. If you have any more questions in the future, don't hesitate to ask. Thank you for the engaging conversation.
This video is the copyright property of Mytech Visions and may not be reproduced and distributed without the express permission of Mytech Visions. All rights reserved. Sharing on social media is permitted on the condition that the video is shared in full and without any alteration or editing.